Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Countdown podcast with Peter Lynch and Declan Hughes. Again, a big thank you to Freelance Football Ops who source football media jobs on social media. Big shout out to them. So, as you can see, it's just myself and Peter again today. We are going to discuss the international football. The break's over. Both Scotland and Northern Ireland have played 3 games during 6 days. It's been, Pete.
Yep.
Lots of football to talk about. So we're just going to crack right on with it. And we're going to get your thoughts on Northern Ireland's first fixture, which was last Thursday. You played Italy. You said you didn't really expect to take anything from it. You guys lost 2-0. So do you want to give us your thoughts on the overall of that game?
Yeah. Two things I would say. Frustration is the number one, but plenty of positives would be number two. So yeah, just on that first point, frustrated because we had plenty of chances, but we just couldn't score, couldn't find the back of the net. We more than matched them. We dominated corners, crosses, you name it. Possession was a lot higher than anybody thought we would manage. And then the worst of all was just the manner of the goals we conceded. Two really, really bad goals to concede, unfortunately. I think a lack of first team football maybe came back to haunt Bailey Peacock Farrell in the goals. Obviously, he's at Burnley, but he's on the bench pretty much every single week. Yeah, I mean, it's quite an unpopular opinion. I've said it before, but I didn't say it last time. But we still have Michael McGovern in our ranks. He's injured at the minute, so obviously he can't play. I still think he's our best goalkeeper. I don't think many people agree with me, but I don't know why he's been a bit unlucky because he's been impressive every game he's played for us when he's been given the chance. But nah, that's neither here nor there. I'll move on to the positives. 2-0 down at half time. We didn't concede in the second half. 45 minutes against a really strong Italy side. These guys are playing Serie A football every week, Champions League, some of them, Europa League, a lot of them. So I think that was impressive. And then, going on from that, they were on a 22 game unbeaten run. We talked about it before. So yeah, I mean, I think 2-0 is kind of respectable, sorry. And that it also goes down to goal difference. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, other teams could lose a lot heavier than we did. So I think, we kind of came out of that okay. And I think just lastly, I said it before, Michael O'Neill, he was given a lot of time in charge to get things right. So I think Ian Barraclough deserves plenty of time to get it right. I would maybe compare the situation to Stephen Kenny, the Republic. Both managers have come from the younger age groups. They were in the development squads coaching there. They've come in with a lot of younger players. Both countries have lost a lot of their older players, so it's a kind of similar situation. It looks like Kenny's going to be given time, so I think Barraclough, is going to be in the same boat. But yeah, not an easy game for us at all. Yeah, so that was a tough opener for us. Also, tough opener for you guys, Austria, but you managed to pull off a 2-2 draw. What are the thoughts on that one?
I think it was a fair enough result for both sides. I think Austria kind of dominated the first half. They had a lot of chances. David Marshall made a couple of good saves, so they kind of dominated then. I think it was 0-0 at half time. Obviously, all the goals came in the second half, but
Yeah.
I felt we had more chances to possibly win it, or at least score more than them in the second. I think Christie had a great chance to put us one up. Their goalie made a big mistake and he had a chance. He hit it right at his leg, so that could have maybe changed the outcome of the game. They obviously scored first, and then we kind of bounced back with a good goal from Grant Hanley. So that was good. But I think we should have had a penalty before it. I was watching it when it was 1-0. Christie got took down in the box, and we didn't get a penalty there. So again, that's something that might have changed the outcome. But we got the equaliser. Then I think their boy scored a cracking header. What if it was a great header? The ball was a little bit behind him and he came back and got it. No chance for Marshall saving that one. But then I don't think it was as good as John McGinn's overhead kick. Just a great piece of skill and creativity to get it. It was close, almost offsides, but I think it might have just been on. So we got that, and it was, as I said, it was an even game. I said on the last podcast we talked about these games that I wanted to hit the ground running and get a win, just to put down an early marker. But I wouldn't complain with a point against Austria as long as we can replicate that going there when we play them. So overall, a fair result, and it was a decent start to our campaign.
Absolutely.
So Northern Ireland's next game was a friendly fixture against the USA. So we've discussed numerous times with like Larry and even myself talking about the depth of young talent that America has in their squad. And then we discussed Northern Ireland. You said they'd probably make some changes for that game. So what were your thoughts on it? You guys lost 2-1, but some of the goals you lost were unfortunate, you know. So what's the overall take from it?
Yeah, I mean, US looked very good, but we dealt with them. You know, they had obviously likes of Dest playing. You know, Barcelona, Pulisic, Chelsea. So I think we managed them pretty well. Again, I would use the word frustrating, just because, I mean, there's only so much you can take away from a friendly fixture, obviously. But I mean, you mentioned the goals there. One was a penalty, which was pretty dubious even in itself, and then you know, I mean, the keeper should have saved it. I can't even blame Peacock Farrell this time because it was Connor Hazard in goals.
Legend.
And you know, keeper should never really be expected to save a penalty, but I think he could have done better with this one. And then it was a deflection for the other one. So I mean, we just have to keep, friendly or not, we just have to keep try and stop conceding such, you know, silly goals, such easy goals, you know, because you get punished at this level. But yeah, you mentioned it. Like a turnaround in players, we had a lot of young guys playing. It's really good to see that we have some alternatives for the likes of, you know, Johnny Evans and Steve Davis. We had Kieran Brown in defence, Matty Kennedy, played out wide, Daniel Ballard in defence as well. I think he's going to be a great player for the future. He's actually on the books at Arsenal. He's on loan at Blackpool at the minute, and he's doing really well. So I really wouldn't be surprised to see him at Arsenal in the coming years. So that's definitely one to keep an eye out for. I think we're seeing the final stages of the big Kyle Lafferty. I'm afraid to say it. You know, it was a special night for him, captain in his side in Belfast. You know, he's been through a really tough time recently after the loss of his sister. So thoughts go out to him, and you know, it was a really proud night for him, I'm sure. So he was really happy to lead the line and captain his country. But you know, mentioning him kind of, you know, going out of the international scene, we have two guys coming through, in Shane Lavery and Dion Charles. I think I speak for everyone when I say that, you know, we wanted to see more of Charles. You know, he came on against USA, and you know, he had a shot straight away. It might have been his first touch. So yeah, he looked lively straight away, but you know, that was kind of the only action that he saw over the break, unfortunately. And then Lavery, he's playing for Linfield in the Irish Premiership, and he's coming up against these guys, and you know, in Champions League, I mentioned that Premier League, these guys, that quality of players, you know, I think he goes in with every game with the same attitude, and he can just terrorize any single defense. It was obviously a home game for him because he plays at Linfield, so he plays at that stadium anyway. So I think that helped him. But you know, I think he's more than happy to take on anyone, and he will run tirelessly for 60, 70 minutes. And I'm really excited for his future. You know, I mentioned him in the last podcast. He wasn't even in the initial squad, but a few guys had to pull out through injury, so he got, you know, drafted in, and he's taken that chance, and he has to be in the next one. He was on the books at Everton a few years ago. He was one of their players. As I say, now he's at Linfield. So excited to see. I think he could be back in England pretty soon. So yeah, as I said, but you can't really take much out of a friendly. But I mean, still some positives. I would say one good thing, we got ourselves a goal, and it was an absolute wonder goal by Armageddon, Niall. So I think that one's, you know, if anybody hasn't seen it, you know, you need to get watching that immediately. Absolute cracker.
We Niall, what a legend.
Yeah, some man. So yeah, that was at least one positive. But moving back on to you guys, you also netted one. Israel, another point. What are the thoughts there?
Before I talk about that, I just wanted to say Connor Hazard, he saved enough penalties in the Scottish Cup final, so let him off for that, okay? Don't hold him.
Fair enough.
That, right?
I'll give you that.
Right. This must be Steve Clarke's bogey teams, Israel, because I think it's 7. I think we've played them 7 times, and we've not been able to beat them in 90 minutes. So I think Steve Clarke will be glad to see the back of Israel. But the first half, it was so poor. It was I don't think we had a shot on target. Too defensive, kind of sitting back off them. We let them dominate on the ball, and then the goal kind of came from it when the boy hit it from the edge of the box. Nobody really pressed him. They got a shot off. I think maybe Marshall could have probably done a little bit better, but the goal had been coming because they were all over us. So, but to Clark's credit, he changed it at half time. He took Jack Henry off and he brought on Ryan Christie to give us a little bit more offensively. And then we ended up getting the equaliser through Ryan Fraser. So, but I wanted to then kick on because we had plenty of time. The goal was scored fairly early in the second half for like 60 minutes, I think. So there was time to kick on from there. But I think both sides ended up seeming like they were okay with a point, which I feel these games for us, if we've got real aspirations of qualifying from a World Cup group, you've got to beat Israel. Like, no disrespect to them, but you've got to beat Israel away and home. These are the games that you have to win. And we're in a group that we've discussed this before, that there's no real standout team. There's no Germany, there's no Italy, England, Spain. Do you know what I mean? This is a group that will be fairly competitive. And we saw Denmark went to Israel for their first game and they won 2-0, I think. So they've won there. And I know a lot of people are saying a point's a decent result, but when you look back at Denmark doing that and getting the win, then it's 2 points dropped then, because now they've got the advantage. Now there's pressure on us to win at home, which again against Israel is going to be tough. We always say we struggle with these kind of games, so we've got to figure something out. Maybe be a little bit more aggressive and try and go forward a little bit more than set up so defensively. So that's my kind of take on these games. So it was 2 points dropped in my opinion. I was kind of disappointed with that result. Leads us nicely into yesterday's game for you, Pete. Northern Ireland and Bulgaria. We expected a Northern Ireland win. A lot of Bulgarians were out injured, and obviously not the same kind of team that they were before when they had like Berbatov and stuff. So a game expected to win. So what were your thoughts on that 0-0?
I don't even want to talk about this one, to be honest. I'm happy to talk about us losing 2-0 to Italy, but honestly, you talk about games that are must-win games. That's the definition of a must-win game right there. Home to Bulgaria. Again, no disrespect, but you mentioned it there that they had their two fullbacks out. They had their keeper out. Their keeper came in. He was making his debut. And I know it might have been one of those ones, where the keeper comes in, it's his first game, and he has an absolute blinder. It seems to always happen. But we just weren't clinical enough. It wasn't about that. It was about us. We had almost 70% possession. I think shots were nearly double figures. Corners were double figures. We dominated, but just could not score. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just, tired legs after a few games. No fans, you can't really make these excuses, to be honest. Whenever you're playing a game like that, whenever you need to win, because you mentioned Denmark doing well, other teams doing well in the group. That's Italy. I think they're 3 from 3.
Yep.
Switzerland are 2 from 2, and that's the two teams we're trying to catch. Maybe let Italy win the group, but we're trying to catch Switzerland. So that leaves us with a real job on our hands. Having to beat Switzerland home and away.
Yep.
Maybe even relying on other teams to drop points. What? Like, it's not what you want. But I mean, 2 games in, and people are already saying it's over for us. But I don't want to say that just yet. There's still plenty of time, I think. But yeah, I think just going back to the goals, I mentioned the lack of goals. It was Connor Washington. I think it was tailor-made for him. He was out injured, sadly. And the 2 guys I talked about earlier, Charles and Lavery. I think if you're crying out for a goal, then you bring one of those guys on. And unfortunately, Ian Barraclough didn't see it that way. But obviously not as bad as a loss. It's still points dropped. But I think one positive thing, if I had to be an optimist about it, like you mentioned Bulgaria back in the day, like Berbatov and even Petrov. I was in Belfast, a fair few years ago now, and we lost those games. We were losing to the likes of Bulgaria, the likes of Liechtenstein, maybe Luxembourg. Even Michael O'Neill lost those games at times. So, it's a point, but it's definitely points dropped as well. So yeah, very frustrating. Different story entirely for you boys, thankfully. You avoided that one, the banana skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy days for you guys. Happy enough with the 4 goals, just.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they just took a win, but I know like it might come down to goal difference, but just get 3 points on the board after, as I said, a fairly disappointing result against Israel. So a game we expected to win, but we discussed you never know with Scotland. We always seem to make these games really hard for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like just I'd say that standout performances were probably from John McGinn again, obviously getting a couple of goals, and Tierney get a hat trick of assists, putting some great balls into the box. Great to see Shea Adams getting his first goal as well. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be our kind of way to go. I think is trying to get balls into the box, especially if your 3 strikers that you've got in the squad are Lyndon Dykes, Shea Adams, and what's his name, Ollie McBurney. So
Yeah.
big kind of physical guys, but from overall it's been a decent start for us. And I say get some of these guys into the squad. We're seeing who's our key players. As I said, Tierney, McGinn, Shea Adams looks like a good player for us as well, a good option. So decent start. I said I was looking for, what did I say, 7 points. We've got 5. So not bad, but now we really need some good performances to really cement ourselves as a contender to at least get second in the group. But now we can just we can look forward to the Euros in the summer now. So looking forward to that.
Nice to some.
So we're countdown this week. Again, both of us are going to give our top 3 performers, or top 3 performing players from both countries in those 3 games. So Pete, would you like to go first?
Yep, sure thing. Obviously it wasn't easy whenever you didn't score many goals and you didn't win a single game, but I think no strikers are going to make it just because of those facts. I would say number 3, Paddy McNair. Talked about him in the last podcast we did. He overcame his injury. His experience in there is just critical in such a young team. He's just a dream for any manager, I think, to have in there, because he's like Sturdy Dallas. He can play. He's played in defence. He's played in midfield. So he had to cover a lot of ground in those games. He played at the back against Italy, and then he played in midfield against Bulgaria. Yeah, he's an important player for us, definitely, and he was, one of the standouts again. Number 2, I would say Johnny Evans. Another man with real experience that we need right now. He helped keep it just to 2 against Italy. I think it could have been worse. But he made a few decent last ditch tackles, a couple of blocks. I'd go as far as saying, I'm not comparing them in any way, but it's kind of like a Van Dijk role at Liverpool. You have the players around you, you make them a lot better. I think Van Dijk, makes the likes of Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, even Gomez, he raises their game. I would say having someone like Evans in the heart of your defence raises the game of Jamal Lewis and left back, Daniel Ballard. Someone so young, he has someone to look up to. So yeah, I think he's an important player for us, and he was good again. He's always solid for his country, and even for Leicester as well. And yeah, Steve Davis, number 1, absolutely, captain, leader, legend. Became the most.
That's not his motto, that's someone else's motto.
Well,
Can't
it's
be using
Stevie
that.
And Gerard, absolutely loves him, and he, you can see why he's so important for Rangers, and he's so important for us, for his country. He became UK's most capped international men's player against Bulgaria, 126 caps, which is just, a phenomenal achievement. And, he really deserves it to be at the top of that list, just because of, his service over the years. He kept things ticking in those games. He was man of the match against Italy. So yeah, it just shows what an important player he is for us. Box to box midfielder, last ditch tackles, running forward, creating chances, you name it, he'll do it. He just goes about his game quietly, tirelessly. So yeah, he's still our main man, and hopefully he has at least another year left in him anyway. Yeah, so that's me. Moving on to you guys. Who do you see standing out for Scotland there over the break?
I think at least the first 2 kind of picked themselves. So my third one that I'm going to go with was Scott McTominay. Is a guy that we kind of discussed off air. about his role. Again, I thought he was going to play centre back, but he played in the midfield, and I think he was really solid in the 3 games in there. I think he's got a good drive to take us forward when he's on the ball, and he shows. I think he showed he's better in midfield, or we can utilise him in midfield better rather than at the back. But it's nice to have that versatility there that we can put him there. But he was really solid, decent, and we're just glad we've kind of got him, because I think by now he probably would have had an England call up if it hadn't by now, how he's playing at Man U. So he's my number 3. Number 2 is going to be Kieran Tierney. I've already just talked about him, how highly I rate him. We discussed his assists in the last game, and again, he's another player that's just so versatile. We can play him at centre back, left back. Can probably play in midfield. Could probably stick him up front if we wanted to stick him up there. So he's just so important for us, and he was a real standout in those matches for us as well. So I'll give credit to Kieran. Number 1's just got to be John McGinn, Super John McGinn, right? He was sensational. It's hard to pick anybody else from those 3 matches that stood out for Scotland. 3 goals in those games. Just a guy that brings a lot of energy into midfield. Obviously a goal threat, but you can tackle as well. Kind of versatile. Box to box, you could say, just kind of what you pointed about Steve Davis. Stand out in that position when it's a position where we've got so much talent in midfield, like centre midfield, attacking midfield. So, but he probably makes himself the first pick in there for Steve Clarke. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. So he's my number 1 guy for Scotland over these 3 games, and hopefully he can stay fit for the rest of the season, and we'll see him have a good Euros.
Yeah, hopefully. But at least we both have a good McGinn in our squad anyway.
Yep.
We'll have to figure out who's better. I'm sure it's ours.
You're okay. Really?
We'll ask our follower.
That'll be the that's going to be a poll this week, and I'd like to point out that the polls that we did for the Scotland and Northern Ireland ones 2 weeks ago, I won every single one. So long may that continue, right?
Like, we'll see. It's your time now, but our time will come again. And we had a few years ago. We were in the spotlight at the Euros, so it's nice to see you guys having your chance as well on the international stage.
Yeah,
so well done.
Hopefully we can do what you guys did, get the group. That'd be great. So we'll soon find out, right? Couple of months.
Yep. Well, that seems like a perfect place to leave it for this week. Declan, thanks so much for joining, giving your opinions as always.
No worries.
I think it was a tough international break for Northern Ireland anyway. We talked about how Scotland maybe could have got more out of it, but we'll see what's going to happen. There's a lot of games left to play, obviously, but I think the next international break is a couple of months away at least. So I think we're ready for a return of club football. Would you say?
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining me, and everyone back home watching, wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We've got some exciting guests coming up in the weeks to come, so stay tuned, and we'll see you all next week.